Merry Christmas, everybody. It's officially that time of year. And I'm sure that most of the people watching are going to take part in the tradition to watch the classic movie Home Alone. And I'd love to sit here and talk about how good that movie is all day, but unfortunately, today that's not what I'm going to do. Instead, I'm going to review Home Alone 4. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Wow, this looks like a huge piece of crap. And you'd be right. But before I jump into the review, I'd like to give you guys a little bit of history. So John Hughes came up with the idea to make the first Home Alone movie, and it was a huge success. So they followed up with a sequel, Home Alone 2: Lost in New York, which was also a fairly big success. But none of the original cast wanted to do a third Home Alone movie since Macaulay Culkin was just too old. But the studio that owned Home Alone at the time wanted to continue this trend, so they decided to get John Hughes back as a writer, and they made Home Alone 3 with a different child. And it bombed at the box office. It was a huge failure, and John Hughes did not return to make any more Home Alone movies. But for some reason the studio didn't want to just let this trend die, and they decided to make Home Alone 4. And then they also decided to make Home Alone 5. All of these sequels were pretty bad except for Home Alone 2. But I decided to do a little bit of research on each one individually to find out which one was exactly the worst one. And I have to say, Home Alone 4 looks and sounds like the worst one, so I thought it would make for a very entertaining video. And now, after seeing it, all I have to say is just, it's bad. Oh boy, is it bad. And I'm also kind of confused about a certain aspect to the movie. So the title is Home Alone 4, implying that it's a sequel. Except all of the character names are exactly the same as the ones from the first and second Home Alone movies. And I really don't get this part because the previous movie, Home Alone 3, had an entirely new cast of characters. So I don't get why they kept the characters' names the same. Is it a sequel or a reboot? Decide! Because if you just called it Home Alone and kept the characters' names the same, you would have made a lot more money than if you marketed it as a sequel, Home Alone 4, okay? So I just don't get what they were thinking, okay? The main character kid is also named Kevin McAllister, except he looks nothing like the way Kevin did in the original, and also acts nothing like the way he did either. He also only has 2 siblings, as opposed to the huge family that Kevin had in the original. The robbers return as well, except instead of Marv and Harry, it's Marv and his wife Vera. And get this, they got the name mixed up. This character with the beanie is called Marv throughout the entirety of Home Alone 4, but he's meant to look like Joe Pesci's character Harry from the first Home Alone movie, as well as the second one. So they literally got the name mixed up. That's the level of quality we're dealing with here. And the plot is also nothing like the original. The plot is about the McAllister family. They're a little bit dysfunctional, so the parents decide to get a divorce. And when Christmas time rolls around, the dad wants his kids to spend Christmas with him at his new smart house mansion, along with his new wife. And you might think the fact that they're in a smart house will result in some very cool, quirky little traps that Kevin sets up when he has to defend his house when he's home alone from robbers, but it turns out that all of these traps are completely lackluster and unfunny. And I think that's because the actors who are playing the robbers can't replace the chemistry that the original Harry and Marv had. Their comedic timing was on point, and their reactions to all the traps that Kevin set up were just hilarious. And I didn't see anything even come close to that in this movie. So eventually, the robbers do end up getting arrested, and Kevin's family returns. And then his parents get back together. This part is extremely dumb. Having divorced parents in a movie was probably a really good move at first, because it can be relatable to kids who actually have divorced parents. But having them get back together just seems really offensive, and I definitely think they shouldn't have gone in that direction. And that was my review of Home Alone 4. In conclusion, this movie was terrible, horrible, no good, and it's just a clear cash grab for the Home Alone franchise when they should just let it be. This Christmas season, just stick to watching classic Christmas movies, like the first and second Home Alone movies, and stray away from this one at all costs. That'll be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you on the flip side.